Hello and welcome to today's webinar called SharePoint to Go, How to Connect SharePoint in a Mobile World. I'm Jeff Scheffler, Director of Marketing at Colligo. Joining me today is Trevor Dyke, Director of Product Management. As you're well aware, the topic of BYOD is growing. A deluge of mobile devices, smartphones and tablets, cloud-based applications like Dropbox and Google Drive, and mobile apps like Evernote are making their way into enterprise with a growing demand for BYOD and applications comes for some an IT nightmare of new dimensions. A recent IDG study shows that nearly 70% of professionals in North America that own iPads are using them at work. This webinar examines the needs of each business consumer from the hoodie to the suit and how to leverage SharePoint in a mobile world. The three key learnings you will take from today's webinar include the following: 5 factors driving the trend towards BYOD, the risk and rewards for BYOD in the workplace, and what you should look for in a mobile SharePoint solution. With this data, you'll be able to understand the factors driving BYOD and how to address them, identify systems to maximize SharePoint adoption for mobile usage, and see how one company increased sales productivity by 15% and SharePoint adoption by 20% through mobile. So let's begin by sharing recent data on BYOD globally. This graph shows a recent IDG study of iPad use at work, showing that 67% of professionals in North America and 60% in Europe that own iPads are using them at work. I think we can safely conclude this isn't a fad that'll go away. BYOD is taking the corporate world quite dramatically. After trying to fight it off, IT is working to the demands of users, and this is one face of consumerization that IT is now working with users to drive how we do business. This chart is from an April 2013 Gartner report entitled Bring Your Own Device, The Facts and the Future. The graph shows the projected growth of BYOD from 6 to 45% over the next few years. They go on to call BYOD the most radical change to the economics and the culture of client computing in business in decades. Shifting to the perspective of workers and recent graduates, nearly 70% from the US expect that employers will provide the right tools needed to do their jobs. This includes all technology devices, the software applications, and the necessary technology training. Australia and Germany weren't far behind the US, with nearly 60% bringing high expectations to the workplace. These results come from a study by Intel in October 2012 called Insights on the Current State of BYOD in the Enterprise. In fact, the research revealed a gap between employee expectations and what organizations provide. Employees are expected to be accessible to teams, customers, and suppliers, yet employers often issue desktop PCs and typically no phone. The desire among employees to bring personal devices to work emphasizes this gap between what employees expect and what IT organizations provide, and it's contributing to the risk level because employers are increasingly using non-supported devices and therefore exposing their company to a number of potential security holes. We've identified 5 factors that are driving the trend in BYOD. Workers' behavior and expectations are contributing to the consumerization of IT, the first trend, where lines of business and users themselves are having an enormous influence on the types of technologies and applications used. Employees often have better, faster, newer, and more fun devices than those supplied to them by their IT department. And these include the latest and greatest of iPhone, Android, iPad, tablet, and increasing Windows devices. The following figure is from an April report by Austrian Research entitled Managing BYOD in a Corporate Environment, and it shows that the majority of iPhone and Android devices used for work-related purposes are personally owned. Quite often, employees seek out specific smartphones and tablets that offer features that they desire and are willing to fund themselves. For example, Forrester Research found that more than 1/3 of workers are willing to use their own funds to employ the computer they want. The growing trend towards telework is also fueling BYOD as employees work increasingly from home and employ their own desktop computers, laptops, smartphones, tablets, and other infrastructure to do their work. Forrester Research found that 37% of employees work from more than one location and 53% do so with multiple devices. Forrester argues that this trend is pretty much irreversible, and they point to senior executives as the primary culprits, leading the way, as 77% of executives buy their own hardware and 45% do the same for software. The report is based on Forrester Foresight's Workforce Employee Survey. Researchers polled nearly 10,000 information workers in 17 countries, including Australia, Brazil, France, Germany, Japan, the UK, and the US, from SMB and enterprise companies with 20 or more employees. Employees increasingly have an expectation of always being connected and always having access to content, whether work-related or personal. And this blurring of work-life separation makes access to corporate data and resources essential on all devices used by employees. IT departments often cannot or will not afford the latest and greatest hardware because tight IT budgets and or the need to apply sound financial principles to purchase decisions for hardware and other infrastructure. Where the hardware purchase decision is not the limiting factor, quite often the cost of managing a wide range of different devices and operating systems is determined to be too costly. The business case needs to be better evaluated. Most leaders do not understand the benefits of BYOD, and only 22% believe they have made a strong business case, as viewed in the attached figure from a Gartner report entitled Bring Your Own Device, The Facts and the Future. A perfect storm is developing, according to Gartner, as four very disruptive technology trends converge, bringing change and opportunity to the way business operate and the restructuring the IT industry as a whole. Gartner calls this the nexus of forces, the convergence and mutual reinforcement of mobility, social, cloud, and information patterns that drive new business scenarios. As a result of consumerization and the ubiquity of connected smart devices, people's behavior has caused a convergence of these forces. Mobile devices are a platform for effective social networking and new ways of work. Social links people to their work and each other in new and unexpected ways. Cloud enables delivery of information and functionality to users and systems. The forces of the nexus are intertwined to create a user-driven system of modern computing. And this user-centric convergence is a warning to senior IT leaders. Their existing architectures are becoming obsolete. Finally, a growing proportion of organizations are supporting BYOD programs. For example, Gartner found that 38% of US-based CIOs were expected to support BYOD programs in the future. And a Dell Quest-funded Vance and Bourne report found that 3 out of 4 IT leaders believe BYOD can help employees be more productive. The graph above from Gartner shows different types of BYOD programs adopted by industry, with retail being the highest. There are many types of programs, from employee responsible models to hybrid, with a shared responsibility for ownership, payment, and support. The most common model allows for an enterprise supply device to be used for personal applications. Now that we've covered the factors impacting BYOD, let's look at the benefits and risks. Starting with the benefits, first, there are a number of drivers for BYOD, and most notably employee satisfaction, with the freedom to work anywhere and anytime from work to home. Next, companies today expect their employees to be accessible to teams, customers, and suppliers. BYOD helps them achieve the increase in productivity because now employees can collaborate more easily. And finally, BYOD enables workers to achieve a seamless flow of information and access to applications across all of their devices, whether these devices are supplied by the employer or personally owned, leading to higher performance. BYOD creates some risks for an organization if not properly managed. Among these risks are an inability to retain and manage corporate content that may be required for purposes of archiving, regulatory compliance, e-discovery, or knowledge management. Second is a failure to protect against the incursion of malware. Third is an inability to properly scan inbound or outbound content. And finally, for organizations that do not address BYOD properly, it represents an increased risk of security breaches. If you're assessing BYOD, consider how many forums your company will support and establish clear policies. Research demonstrates that there are tremendous opportunities to BYOD for organizations of any size and in any industry. At this time, I'm going to invite Trevor Dyke, Director of Product Management at Colligo, to speak about what you should look for in a mobile SharePoint solution. The following information is a summary from a recent ebook we did entitled SharePoint to Go, A Buyer's Guide to Mobile SharePoint Solution. Trevor, over to you.
Thanks, Jeff, for that great research on BYOD, and it's always really good to hear the latest trends and what's happening in the industry today. Expectations have certainly changed. Employees, especially the younger generation, expect to choose their own device and to have the flexibility to work out of a makeshift office. However, the requirements for security and regulatory compliance remain the same. Meeting these conflicting needs is a real balancing act. The majority of large organizations have significant investments in Microsoft SharePoint. Critical corporate content is already stored in SharePoint, which was designed for the purpose of secure enterprise content management and has many built-in features for compliance. The most obvious solution is to leverage this by providing mobile access to SharePoint. Meanwhile, some individual users and departments are tempted to opt for consumer-focused cloud file sharing as an easier option, while IT suffer the security consequences. Independent mobile SharePoint solutions have filled this gap, making SharePoint easy and relevant for mobile employees. SharePoint has now moved from the office to the road and from being a mandate issued by the suits to an app of choice for the hoodies. We will look at the needs of each stakeholder and show you what to look for in a mobile SharePoint solution. So as we go through this, we'll look at the very different needs of 4 different user groups. Business users who need to get their jobs done out on the road, IT who need to manage the deluge of new devices out there, security who need to prevent data leakage, and the C-suite who wants to make staff more productive while keeping IT costs down and keeping corporate data secure. For the business user out on the road, it's all about being productive and responsive while not having to lug a laptop around. Business users need to be able to find the content they need with just a few keystrokes and know that it is always up to date. For instance, a service technician may need to quickly reference the latest maintenance manual and then fill out and submit a site inspection form complete with photos. A sales rep, on the other hand, may need to quickly pull up the price promos for that month to show a customer and then quickly edit a sales contract to print off and give to the customer. To make these business users' lives easier and to speed up customer response times, you'll need to look for the following features in a mobile SharePoint product. First of all, a preview pane to help you find the right content fast, without having to open every document. You want to look for search to be able to find content on your iPad or on the SharePoint site. Favorites and playlists keep frequent items handy, and the ability to edit in a third-party app such as Documents to Go is very important. You'll need a mobile client that is offline by default, automatically syncing your content at set intervals to ensure that it's always up to date. When you need to share content with colleagues, you'll want to email a SharePoint link rather than an attachment to keep it secure. And finally, InfoPath form support ensures users can fill out and submit forms directly from their iPhone or iPad on site rather than waiting until they are back in the office. Now let's look at IT. For IT, the goal is to empower mobile users without creating administration nightmares. If your users require individual attention, then IT costs will soar. On the other hand, if you have centralized administration and configuration, users will not need to look under the hood, and IT can stay efficient and keep costs down. Most solutions do not have a centralized administration component, so be sure to check. Look for the following IT features to keep costs down. IT should be able to configure all users from one central console and to push out new SharePoint sites. Users do not need to be able to be involved in setup. IT should be able to control user or group access to content, to expire content, and to disable sharing by item. The solution should also have granular controls to give IT flexibility over what to sync and when. You might choose to sync every 15 minutes, hourly, daily, or every time the app is opened. You should also be able to select which files, folders, libraries, or sites to sync. You should also look for the ability to limit sync to Wi-Fi only to keep costs down. You may also want to limit application memory usage for offline storage. To achieve all of this for IT, you need a dedicated admin component and a powerful sync engine. Different solutions vary widely on this, so check carefully. Security is extremely important when considering mobile solutions. For security, attention is focused on 5 key questions. We will go through each of these and show you what to check for. You may also want to look at an independent security audit, comparing the various mobile SharePoint solutions. So first of all, what if an iPad is stolen? If an iPad is stolen, you need to know that your corporate data is protected. In addition to the iPad passcode, you need a separate app-level passcode to protect your SharePoint data. If someone attempts to break into the app by force, you may want to automatically wipe all content, for instance, after several failed logins. How do you control access to enterprise content? You need a solution that enables complete control over access to corporate content from a central point. Apart from the IT controls we just mentioned, you'll also need a solution that supports all SharePoint authentication methods, from claims mode to classic mode. What if a malicious app tries to access content? There's a lot you can do to prevent malicious access. Firstly, stored data should be encrypted with AES 256-bit encryption, the highest level of encryption available. Users' SharePoint credentials should be encrypted and stored in the device's keychain. Screen capture by rogue apps should be prevented with screen blanking when changing applications. Alteration of things like plist files should trigger a reset, removing all data and configurations. And also, no data should be backed up on iTunes. What if a jailbroken device appears in the network? Jailbroken devices provide a serious security risk, since users may inadvertently introduce malware through use of unauthorized apps. Jailbroken devices will be detected and blocked by your MDM solution. How do you prevent sensitive corporate data from being shared? You should be able to disable emailing attachments, printing, and opening the document in another application. You should also be able to specify a restricted set of third-party apps that are authorized for open-in. Equipping mobile workers with tablets and smartphones brings the promise of greater productivity. Sales and support staff can work more quickly, collaborate, and be far more responsive to customer demands. On the flip side, if IT costs are driven up and security is compromised, the whole venture will be in vain. Finally, what will the C-suite be looking for at the top level to ensure that the benefits are seen on the bottom line? Simplicity, to keep users from being tempted by consumer cloud file sharing. Independent security audit. Integration with secure container products such as Good Dynamics. A dedicated administration component to keep IT costs down and maximize control. And lastly, enterprise-grade staff for customization, supporting your deployment, and fast problem resolution. At this time, I'd like to share a case study on one particular client who increased sales productivity by 15% and SharePoint adoption by 20%. So I'd like to share this case study with you about Benco Dental. They're one of the fastest growing US dental distributors, providing dental supplies and equipment to more than 30,000 dental professionals. What they needed to do was to improve customer satisfaction by responding faster to dentist questions and requests for information. The solution they implemented was to deploy Colligo Briefcase on iPads to securely distribute their content. They had over 2,000 documents, they also had videos, and I think in total it was 3 gig of data that they were syncing to over 450 sales reps. They also used Colligo Administrator for central configuration and management. The results they saw were astounding. They saw increased sales productivity by 15%, enabling them to respond on-site and cutting the need for follow-up time back at their desks. The other result was they brought in ECM adoption by 20%, enabling sales to access their sales collateral whether they were on the road or offline. A detailed description of Benco, their challenge, and their solution is available in a case study on the Colligo website. So in closing, we would like to briefly introduce Colligo. So in short, Colligo develops applications that sync with SharePoint. Whether mobile, tablet, desktop, or through Outlook, over 5,000 companies rely upon Colligo to get more from SharePoint. So Colligo has 4 main products. Colligo Email Manager offers enterprise-class SharePoint access in Outlook. Colligo Briefcase provides synced SharePoint for mobility and performance on 4 platforms: Windows, iOS, Mac OS X, and Android. Colligo Contributor Pro is a complete solution for SharePoint content and email management on Windows. And finally, Colligo Administrator offers centralized configuration and management for all Colligo applications. This slide gives you just a snapshot of some of our customers. As you can see, we have a wide range of enterprise customers around the world in various industries such as professional services, oil and gas, natural resources, government, and pharma. Technology too. One of our flagship customers is Microsoft themselves. So thank you very much everyone for your time. I'm now going to hand it back over to Jeff, who will wrap things up.
Thanks, Trevor. If you'd like to learn more about Colligo's mobile product that syncs with SharePoint, click this slide to register for a free 30-day trial to get the #1 mobile collaboration app for connecting SharePoint to content on an iPad, iPhone, or iPod Touch. Thank you again for watching today's webinar, SharePoint to Go, How to Connect SharePoint in a Mobile World. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact myself or Trevor with the information above. And we look forward to seeing you next time.